Hi there, it is Jo from Minerva, and today I'm here to do a fabric masterclass with you, which is all about French terry. French terry is a type of sweatshirt fabric. It is really good at taking a colour saturation. In the past, you could buy solid colours of French terry really easily in lots of different solid colours, but now with our Minerva exclusive range, we've got all of our prints on our French terry fabric. French terry is a really versatile fabric. It's not just for sweatshirts. You can use it to make dresses. You can use it to make beanie hats. You can make snoods with it. So if you're not into making full garments, it's really great for accessories. Lovely for children's wear, little romper suits, little hoodies, all of that kind of thing. It's also really good for winter workwear, so workout wear. So if you go running or you get colder in the winter when you're exercising, if you can make leggings and tops out of this fabric, it will keep you much warmer. It's got a really high cotton content, so it's good for active wear. You can also use French terry to make pyjamas, so you'll get a winter feeling pyjama set, really nice and warm and cozy, and it's comfortable to wear in bed, and again it's got that cotton content. If you've not sewn French terry before, it's really easy. You treat it like a stretch fabric, but there's a few little tips that might help you along the way. I really like sewing with French terry because I can collect all the bits of French terry and they always get used up. So you can use them for hembands, neck bands, cuffs, so say on joggers for example. So you can mix and match and get some contrasting garments. So if you haven't got enough of this fabric from a leftover piece, you can use just the front. This is the Linden sweatshirt. I've made it completely in the French terry with the print, but you could just use your final piece of fabric for the front and then use a contrasting or a matching solid colour for the sleeves and the back. There's always a way to use up French terry by piecing together little bits of what you have left over. A great example of this is the page hoodie. I've made the page hoodie using lots of different pieces of French terry. These are all solid colours, but you can see here that by mixing and matching you can use up all of your fabric, so you don't end up with odd pieces left over that you don't know what to do with. You can find out how much stretch is in your French terry by doing either a stretch test, or you can get that information from the fabric description on our website. Once you've found out how much stretch your fabric has in both the width and the length grain, then you can understand which way to place your pattern pieces so that you use the direction of greatest stretch. To find the stretch percentage of your French terry, it is listed on the website of course, but if you just want to double check if you've lost the selvages off your cut piece or you're using leftovers, you can check which way the direction of greatest stretch is. You will need to find 10 centimetre length of fabric. You can mark that fabric either with a chalk or a pin. Hold down at 1 centimetre and stretch your fabric comfortably. This one goes to 13 centimetres, so it's got 30% stretch in this direction. If we do the same the other way, this one has 40% stretch in this direction. This direction is the length grain, so this one is 40. And in this direction, this one was 30. So if you're cutting your fabric, you want to make sure that you're getting the greatest direction of stretch around cuff bands, neck bands, across your body from shoulder to shoulder, and the more stable grain runs from your neck to your hem. If you switch it around, you'll end up with sleeves that are really stretchy in the length and tight in your upper arm. Let's get the sewing machine out and we'll have a look at some stitch sampling up of using some French terry pieces. We can try a zigzag stitch, a straight stitch, some Maraflex thread, and also a few tips on our overlocker. To sew French terry, a ballpoint needle is the best. It's got a softer tip, so it finds a hole through the weave of the fabric rather than puncturing a hole, which sometimes splits those knit threads. Alternatively, if the ballpoint needle is not working in your machine, you can try a stretch stitch that has a sharper point, but sometimes a sewing machine prefers this one. I've got a ballpoint needle in today, and we're going to sew a sample of French terry. I'm going to use a zigzag stitch. That's my stitch selection, and I'm going to make the zigzag really narrow. That means that my zigzag won't switch from side to side in an exaggerated manner. It'll just be a very narrow wobbly stitch. I'm going to try first of all on a standard 2.5 and see how it sews. This is what it looks like. It doesn't look quite as straight as a straight stitch because it's a really narrow zigzag, and the fabric still has a little bit of stretch. You can't see the stitches. If you can see the stitches, you might want to make your stitch length a little bit smaller. If you want more stretch in this seam for the garment's construction reason, then you can make your stitch length a little bit longer. French terry doesn't fray, so you can leave your seams unfinished. You can press the seams open to set the thread in the stitches. If you're working with stretchy fabrics, it's a good idea to also sew in a different direction, especially if your fabric is a 4-way stretch or a 2-way stretch and you've got different stretch percentages in the different directions. There's still a bit of give, but the seam is secure. You can also try a lightning stitch if you have this stitch picture on your machine. This one is a little bit stronger. It's slower because the stitches are much closer together. The zigzag on that angle means that the fibres can still move and stretch when the seam is moved around. Let's take a look at that one. It's a little bit slower to sew, but it does make the seam stronger, especially if you're making a garment with negative ease. So for example, if you're making yoga wear or sportswear, you will find that this stitch will be stronger on your seam lines. You can see the shape of this one, a little bit more pronounced, but much stretchier. And you can really stretch this seam. This is a pattern fabric, so I'm getting a little bit of the white coming through onto the darker side of the fabric. But if you had a single colour terry, you could match up your thread. If you don't have so many stitch options on your machine because you've got a manual sewing machine, then you could try a Maraflex thread. It's a stretchy thread, which means you can use a straight stitch but still get a stretchy seam. I mark up my Maraflex bobbins with a little Sharpie. Look, I know that that one is Maraflex thread, and it reminds me to match it up with a Maraflex on my reel. Let's thread this one up and we'll see what effect we can get. This time I can have my stitch on my normal straight stitch. I'm going to go for 2.5. I might just take it up 3 so that I can get a really stretchy seam. This is a straight stitch with a Maraflex thread, much stretchier. Also makes the seam nice and firm. I did go to stitch length 3 there, and you can see I'm seeing the thread, so I might go down and have another go. Yep, that's better. So it's good to do some test stitching before you sew your French terry into its final garment. You can make whole garments with French terry on your overlocker if you've got one. So you need to make sure that you're getting your both needles, left and right needle, working together, and your upper and lower loopers working together. So you need the edge of the fabric to have the where the upper and the lower loopers join. If the upper looper is coming this way, you'll get a funny stitch on this side. If the lower looper is wrong, it'll be going that side. So have a little test. I don't like putting my pins in this way when I'm using an overlocker because I have ruined a blade because I was so busy looking here that the blade touched the metal and it made quite a kink in it. So I like to put my pins really far into the seam allowance. The pins are here out of the way. They're still holding the two pieces together, but there's not a risk that I'm going to catch my blade on one going horizontally. I've got good upper and lower loopers there. The top of the raw edge should have where the upper and the lower loopers meet. That line shouldn't be drifting to the front or the back. We can check the seam. And it's still nice and stretchy. If you're making a whole garment on an overlocker, then you need to use any lines or guidance on your machine that gives you the right seam allowance, because if this pattern had a seam allowance of 1.5 and we've only used 5mm, then our top will be too big all over, especially on sleeve heads. So if you have the raw edge here and you have a seam allowance of 1.5, then make sure your seam line is landing in the correct place and you're chopping off just the excess. If this is getting really wobbly, that's because you need to change the differential feed. So you can change the differential feed up. This is 1, but I've got mine up near 2. If you have it too low, I'll show you what happens. It will stretch out your fabric as it's sewing and you'll get wavy and wobbly edges. So if your diff feed is on 1, it's stretching the fabric through the machine, even if you think you're not doing it. So you need to move your diff feed up. That way you get an even feed of the fabric without overstretching it. You might find that your terry will curl up at the edges, and it's not a sign of quality. It's because the fabric is made of twisted yarns in a knit motion on a loom. So you will get some curling at the edges. And so if you're putting pieces together, so if we're putting this right sides together, putting your pins at a 45-degree angle does help to hold down that curly edge. You're getting more surface area held down with the pins at an angle. You'll need quite a sharp pin because French terry will have an elastane content. They have different contents. Some are mostly cotton with just a little bit of elastane. Some are polyester with a little bit of elastane. You'll see that reflected in the price. But if you've got a higher elastane content, you'll need a sharper pin, otherwise it'll just bounce back off the fabric. If you'd like to explore your use of fabrics a little bit more, because you tend to sew with the same fabrics, then take a look at the Minerva Fabric Guide. It's a definitive and comprehensive guide to fabric fibres and base cloths. It's set in a ring binder, it has beautiful photography, really inspirational photography throughout the book. And especially if you want to explore using different stretch fabrics, then you can find out a little bit about how stretch fabrics are made. It really helps you to understand which fabrics pair best with which patterns, and also how you'll get the warmth and comfort, or the lightness and airiness from the fabric that you choose. If you're choosing a stretch fabric and terry perhaps isn't the one for you, then you can find out some information about knit fabrics, how the fabrics stretch, because not all fabrics stretch in the same way, and also that little bit that I showed you, how to find out the stretch of your fabric on the length and width grain. In the alphabetical order section of base cloths, you can check out French terry. The difficulty rating here is 3. It's quite a stable stretch fabric to work with, depending on if you've got some modal content. If you've got modal content in your fabric, be a little bit more drapey. Gives you the characteristics, some fabric details, and some sewing tips here which run alongside the sewing tips that I'm showing you today. And of course there is a swatch pack that comes with the folder, so you can put in a little sample and you can have a feel. This one gives you the weight and the content, so if you feel your sample and you know that that's too light for the item that you have in mind, then you can use the grams per square metre to help you to size up or size down for thickness. If you think, right, French terry is the fabric for me, I'm going to have a go at sewing with it, you can use the QR code in the fabric guide, and that will filter out all French terry fabrics on our website, so you don't have to search thousands and thousands of fabrics looking for the base cloth that you need. The fabric guide helps you to compare fabrics, so if you've used French terry before and you like it, but you want to try something different, then you can use all of the characteristics listed in French terry and go and have a look at some other fabrics and see which ones compare, which ones are alike, which ones are similar, and which ones are different. You can always go over to our website to check out some Minerva inspiration. There's a boxy raglan kit from Wardrobe by Me. Here it is in Jungle Dreamer. You can also try a cardigan, so this is the Marlowe cardigan, and you can also see it there used with little bits being used up inside a hoodie. It's great for dresses, so if you want a loose fitting one like the Savannah dress, or you can try the Susie dress for a more fitted silhouette, because you can use the stretch of the terry. Great for kids wear too, so here's some teen wear, that's a melange terry, and here is a baby grow in a patterned print terry. If you want to make your favourite PJ set, then you can mix and match 2 different patterns, or you can choose your pattern straight from the start. This is Jarly, a great pattern for a range of sizes. Terry makes great stretch loungewear pants, so here it is in chromatic fizz, and also you can mix and match with plain terries to make a real loungewear sportswear ensemble. Choosing a terry with modal enters a new world of patterns, because then you can use the drape of the fabric. Here's a Friday Pattern Company dress hack, and you can use it to make a draping feature on a top. I think this maker says it all. There's such a range of garments that you can make with French terry: tops, dresses, fitted styles, draping styles. It really is a great fabric to use. If there's another type of fabric you would like us to give a little masterclass on, then do leave a message in the comments below. We can show you some samples, we can show you how to sew them up, and we can give you a few tips and pattern inspiration. We would love you to make an account with us, so do head over to Minerva, share your makes there, and do inspire our sewing community. If you've made something in French terry, we would love to see that, especially if it's something a little bit different. Thank you very much for watching. Do come back again for more fabric masterclass videos, learn to sew videos, sew alongs, pattern pairings, pattern hacks, pattern drafting. They're all over on our Minerva YouTube channel and on our Minerva feed on our website. Thank you very much for watching. Do call again soon.